The transport ship hummed quietly through the vast darkness of space as Captain Marcus Reed stared out the viewport at the swirling nebula ahead. His weathered hands gripped the armrest of his chair, still feeling the phantom ache from his recent mission on Kepler-7. The memory of those 3 weeks fighting alongside the colonists against the savage Keth raiders lingered in his mind like smoke from a dying fire. Marcus had always been a loner by nature. At 34, he had built his reputation as one of the Galactic Union's most reliable operatives precisely because he worked alone, trusted no one completely, and got results when others failed. His dark brown hair showed streaks of premature gray, and his green eyes held the weight of too many battles fought in the cold vacuum of space. The communication panel beeped softly, interrupting his thoughts. "Captain Reed, we're approaching Station Omega. Prepare for docking procedures," came the mechanical voice of the ship's artificial intelligence. Marcus nodded, straightening his uniform jacket. He had no idea why High Command had summoned him back so urgently. The mission briefing had been deliberately vague, mentioning only a special recognition ceremony for his heroic actions on Kepler-7. He hated ceremonies, hated being the center of attention, but orders were orders. 30 minutes later, Marcus found himself standing in the pristine white corridors of Station Omega, following Lieutenant Torres toward the main assembly hall. The station buzzed with activity as personnel from dozens of different species moved about their duties. Marcus noticed the unusual number of high-ranking officials present today. "Quite the gathering," Marcus commented, adjusting his collar nervously. "You earned it, Captain. What you did on Kepler-7 saved over 10,000 colonists." Torres replied with genuine admiration. They entered the assembly hall where nearly 200 beings had gathered. At the front of the room stood Admiral Hutchinson, a stern woman, in her 50s with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun. Beside her was an ornate crystalline case that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings of all species," Admiral Hutchinson's voice echoed through the hall. "Today we recognize Captain Marcus Reed for extraordinary valor in the face of overwhelming odds." Applause filled the room, and Marcus felt his cheeks warm with embarrassment. He had never been comfortable with praise, preferring to let his actions speak for themselves. As the applause died down, the Admiral continued, "In recognition of your sacrifice and dedication, the Lumina Council has chosen to honor you with a sacred gift." She gestured toward the crystalline case. "Captain Reed, please step forward." Marcus approached cautiously, his military training keeping him alert despite the ceremonial nature of the event. The Admiral opened the case, revealing what appeared to be empty space filled with swirling, opalescent mist. Suddenly, the mist began to coalesce, forming into the shape of a tiny figure no more than 18 inches tall. As the light faded, Marcus found himself staring at the most beautiful being he had ever seen. She appeared humanoid, but clearly alien, with luminescent pearl-white skin that seemed to glow from within. Her hair was like spun silver, flowing past her shoulders in impossible defiance of gravity. Most striking were her eyes, large and violet, filled with an intelligence that seemed ancient despite her delicate, youthful features. She wore a simple, flowing garment that seemed to be made of the same opalescent material as the mist. "This is Zephyra of the Lumina," Admiral Hutchinson explained, her voice taking on a reverent tone. "Her people are master healers and empaths. She has volunteered to bond with you as a sign of eternal gratitude for saving their colony ship." The tiny being looked up at Marcus, and he felt something stir deep in his chest.
Ow.
Her violet eyes seemed to peer directly into his soul, seeing past all his carefully constructed walls and defenses. Without warning, she leaped gracefully from the Admiral's hands. Landing softly on Marcus's shoulder, immediately Marcus felt a warm sensation spread through his body, as if gentle hands were soothing away years of accumulated pain and weariness. The phantom ache from his recent injuries disappeared entirely.
Oh.
"What exactly does this bonding entail?" Marcus asked, trying to keep his voice steady, despite the strange sensations coursing through him. "The Lumina mate for life, Captain.
Once
bonded, she will never willingly leave your side. Her life force will extend yours, and yours will sustain hers. It is the greatest honor their people can bestow." Marcus felt a moment of panic. He'd spent his entire adult life avoiding permanent attachments, and now he was apparently bound to this beautiful alien being whether he wanted it or not. Jepsa seemed to sense his distress. She placed one tiny hand against his neck, and instantly a sense of calm washed over him. When she spoke, her voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, musical and ethereal. "Do not fear, Marcus Reed. I choose this bond freely. Your heart called to mine across the stars." As the ceremony concluded and the crowd began to disperse, Marcus remained standing there, acutely aware of the tiny weight on his shoulder and the profound change that had just occurred in his carefully ordered life. 3 weeks had passed since the bonding ceremony. Marcus was still adjusting to having Zephyra as his constant companion. She had taken up residence in his quarters aboard his personal ship, the Stellar Wanderer, creating what she called a harmony space in the corner near his bed. Marcus watched in fascination. Zephyra used her natural abilities to cultivate small crystalline formations that grew from seemingly nothing. They pulsed with soft light and filled the room with a gentle humming that helped him sleep better than he had in years. "You don't have to stay so close all the time," Marcus said one morning, as he prepared for a routine supply run to Mars Station. Zephyra had positioned herself on his shoulder as usual, her tiny hands gripping his uniform for balance. "The bond requires proximity," she replied in her melodious voice. "But more than that, I wish to understand your world, Marcus Reed." He had asked her several times to simply call him Marcus, but she insisted on using his full name. To her people's customs, names held power. Speaking someone's complete name was a sign of deep respect. During their first mission together, a simple diplomatic escort to the Centauri system, Marcus learned that Zephyra's presence complicated everything. When they stopped at a space station for refueling, other beings stared openly at the tiny lumina perched on his shoulder. Some showed reverence, others curiosity, and a few displayed obvious envy. "Captain Reed," called Commander Vasquez as Marcus approached the refueling station. "I've heard about your companion. Quite the honor." Marcus nodded stiffly, uncomfortable with the attention. Zephyra remained silent, but he could feel her tiny body tense against his shoulder. That night, as they prepared to enter hyperspace, Marcus found Zephyra sitting quietly in her harmony space, her luminescent skin dimmer than usual. "What's wrong?" he asked, settling into the chair across from her crystalline formations. "Your discomfort troubles me," she admitted. "You did not choose this bond. Perhaps I have made an error." Marcus felt a strange pang in his chest. Over the past few weeks, he had grown accustomed to her presence. Her gentle healing touch eased not just physical pain, but something deeper, a loneliness he hadn't even realized he carried. "It's not that I don't appreciate what you've done," Marcus said carefully. "It's just, I've never had a partner before. I don't know how to be responsible for someone else." Zephyra's violet eyes sparkled with something that might have been amusement. "I am not your responsibility, Marcus Reed. I am your equal, despite my size. My people have protected themselves for millennia before humans reached the stars." If to prove her point, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the ship. "Proximity alert. Unknown vessel approaching," announced the ship's computer. Marcus rushed to the bridge with Zephyra still on his shoulder. The view screen showed a sleek black ship of unknown design moving to intercept them. "They're not responding to standard." "Hails," Marcus muttered, his hands flying over the controls. "And they're jamming our communications." Without warning, the alien ship fired some kind of energy weapon that passed through their shields like they weren't there. The Stellar Wanderer shuddered as systems began failing throughout the ship. Marcus felt Zephyra leap from his shoulder onto the control console. Her tiny hands touched the main interface, and suddenly the ship's systems began stabilizing. Skin blazed with brilliant white light as she channeled her life force into the ship's computers. "Zephyra, stop," Marcus shouted, realizing she was exhausting herself. "You'll burn yourself out." But she continued pouring energy into the ship until their shields were restored and weapons came online. Only then did she collapse, her skin barely glowing. Marcus scooped her up gently, feeling how fragile she seemed in his large hands. Her breathing was shallow, and her usual radiant warmth had faded to barely perceptible warmth. "Why did you do that?" he whispered. Because you needed me to, she replied weakly. Because we are bonded, Marcus Reed. Your survival is my survival. As he cradled her against his chest, Marcus realized that his feelings toward his tiny companion had shifted dramatically. What had begun as obligation and awkwardness was becoming something deeper. Something that frightened him with its intensity. He engaged the ship's autopilot and carried Zephyra to their quarters, laying her gently in her harmony space. The crystalline formations around her began to pulse more brightly, responding to her weakened state by providing healing energy. Rest, Marcus said softly, pulling a small cloth over her like a blanket. I'll keep watch. As he settled into the nearby chair, Marcus found himself studying Zephyra's peaceful face. Even unconscious and drained, she possessed an ethereal beauty that took his breath away. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a dangerous thought began to form. What if this bond was becoming more than just mutual survival? What if he was beginning to care for her in ways that went far beyond the practical arrangement the Lumina Council had intended? The thought both thrilled and terrified him. As he maintained his vigil through the long hours of hyperspace travel, 2 months after the bonding, Marcus received orders for his most dangerous assignment yet. Intelligence had discovered a rogue faction operating in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, conducting illegal experiments on captured alien beings. High Command needed someone to infiltrate their base and gather evidence while remaining undetected. This is a solo mission, Admiral Hutchinson emphasized during the briefing. You cannot take your companion. The risk is too great. Marcus felt Zephyra's tiny hand tighten on his collar where she perched. Through their growing bond, he could sense her distress at the thought of separation. With respect, Admiral, Zephyra has proven herself valuable in the field. Her abilities have saved my life more than once. This isn't a negotiation, Captain. The Lumina are too precious to risk in such a dangerous operation. She stays here. That night, Marcus paced his quarters while Zephyra sat silently in her harmony space. The crystalline formations around her pulsed with agitated colors, reflecting her emotional state. You're planning to disobey orders? She said finally, her musical voice carrying a note of certainty. Marcus stopped pacing and looked down at her. How did you know? I can feel your thoughts more clearly now. The bond grows stronger with time. She rose gracefully and walked to the edge of her platform. You believe I will be safer with you than left behind? Those experiments they mentioned? Some of the test subjects were Lumina. If there are others of your people there, Zephyra's luminescent skin flared brighter. Then we must help them. 3 days later, the Stellar Wanderer approached the asteroid field under full stealth protocols. Marcus had modified one of his equipment pouches to serve as a portable harmony space for Zephyra, complete with miniaturized life support systems. The rogue base was hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid, its entrance camouflaged among the rocky debris. Marcus piloted a small infiltration pod through the maze of floating rocks, guided by Zephyra's enhanced senses. There, she whispered, pointing toward what appeared to be empty space. I can feel the suffering of my people. Marcus adjusted his scanner and found the hidden entrance. As they docked with the base, he felt his heart racing with a mixture of adrenaline and fear. Not just for himself, but for the tiny being sharing his dangerous mission inside the base. They moved through dimly lit corridors filled with the hum of machinery and the occasional distant scream. Marcus had infiltrated countless enemy facilities, but something about this place felt different, more sinister. They reached the laboratory level where the experiments were being conducted. Through an observation window, Marcus saw rows of containment units, each holding a different alien species. His blood ran cold when he spotted 3 containment units holding Lumina, their normally radiant skin dim and gray with pain.
Oh, my cousins.
Zephyra breathed, her voice breaking with anguish. Before Marcus could stop her, she leaped from his pouch and pressed her tiny hands against the sealed door. Her skin blazed with brilliant light as she began to override the electronic locks. Zephyra, stop. You'll trigger the alarms. But she was beyond hearing, consumed by the need to free her people. The door slid open with a soft hiss, and immediately, klaxons began wailing throughout the facility. Marcus drew his weapon as footsteps pounded toward their location. We have to go now, not without them, Zephyra declared, rushing toward the containment units. The first guards arrived just as Zafira managed to free the captive Lumina. Marcus laid down covering fire while the tiny beings helped their weakened cousins escape their prisons. More coming from the east corridor. Marcus shouted, reloading his weapon. That's when Zafira did something he had never seen before. She stood in the center of the room and raised her arms, her skin erupting in blinding light. Every electronic system in the laboratory began overloading. Sparks flying from consoles and lights exploding in showers of glass. "Everyone stay close to me," she commanded, her voice carrying new authority. The rescued Lumina gathered around her as she created a protective barrier of pure energy. Marcus felt the warmth wash over him as the barrier extended to include him as well. "I can maintain this for perhaps 10 minutes, Zafira told him, strain evident in her voice. "Can you get us to your ship?" Marcus nodded, amazed by this display of power he never knew she possessed. Together, they fought their way through the chaotic base, Zafira's energy shield deflecting weapons fire while Marcus cleared their path. When they finally reached the docking bay, Marcus was exhausted and wounded, but all the Lumina had survived. As they boarded the Stellar Wanderer, Zafira collapsed from the effort of maintaining the protective barrier. Marcus caught her as she fell, cradling her tiny form against his chest. Her skin was barely glowing, and her breathing was dangerously shallow. Was it worth it? She whispered as he carried her to their quarters. Marcus looked back at the 3 Lumina they had rescued, now tending to each other with gentle healing. "Touches, yes," he said without hesitation. It was worth everything. As he placed Zafira in her harmony space, Marcus realized that something fundamental had changed between them during the mission. She was no longer just his assigned companion or even his friend. Somewhere in the heat of battle, watching her risk everything to save her people, he had fallen completely and irrevocably in love with her. The thought should have terrified him, but instead it felt like the most natural thing in the universe. The weeks following their rescue mission had been filled with debriefings, commendations, and uncomfortable questions from high command about how Marcus had managed to extract 4 Lumina from a heavily fortified base. Admiral Hutchinson suspected he had disobeyed orders, but without proof, she could only issue stern warnings about unnecessary risks. Marcus barely heard the reprimands. His thoughts were consumed by Zafira and the growing feelings he couldn't ignore. She had been different since the rescue, more confident in her abilities, but also more attentive to him in ways that made his heart race. Late one evening aboard the Stellar Wanderer, Marcus found himself watching Zafira as she tended to her harmony space. She had been working for hours, nurturing new crystalline growth that would help sustain the 3 rescued Lumina who were still recovering in the ship's medical bay. "You should rest," Marcus said softly. "You've been pushing yourself too hard." Zafira looked up from her work, violet eyes sparkling in the crystal light. Sleep does not come easily when one's bondmate is troubled. The term bondmate sent a shiver through Marcus. Among the Lumina, it carried implications far beyond simple companionship. "What do you mean?" he asked, though part of him already knew. Zafira stepped to the edge of her platform, bringing her closer to eye level as he sat in his chair. "I can feel your emotions, Marcus Reed. They have grown, complex." Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. "Zafira, you feel as I feel," she continued, her voice gentle but certain. "The bond has awakened something neither of our peoples intended." She was right, and they both knew it. Over the past months, what had begun as mutual respect and friendship had deepened into something far more intimate. Marcus found himself thinking about her constantly, worrying about her safety, treasuring every moment of their quiet conversations. "It's impossible," Marcus said, though his voice lacked conviction. We're different species, the regulations alone." Double, quotes, Shell Shimei, laughed. A sound like crystal bells chiming. "Regulations did not create this bond, Marcus Reed. Something greater than military protocol brought us together." She moved gracefully across the small space between them, placing her tiny hands on his much larger one. The moment their skin touched, Marcus felt the full force of their connection. Her emotions flowed through him, love and longing so intense it took his breath away. "I feel it too," she whispered. "This love that grows stronger each day." Marcus carefully lifted her in his palms, bringing her closer to his face. Her luminescent skin cast everything in soft, ethereal light. "We could never have a normal relationship," he said, though his thumbs gently caressed her tiny form. "The size difference alone, ... Love finds a way," Zephyra replied, leaning into his touch. "My people have bonded with other species before, though rarely with humans. There are ... adjustments that can be made." Before Marcus could ask what she meant, an urgent chime sounded from the ship's communication system. Captain Reed came. "Admiral Hutchinson's voice? Report to Station Omega immediately. We have a priority assignment." Marcus reluctantly set Zephyra back in her harmony space. "We'll continue this conversation later." But as they traveled to Station Omega, Marcus found himself dreading whatever assignment awaited them. For the first time in his career, he had something more important than duty, and the thought of losing it terrified him. The assignment proved to be exactly what Marcus had feared: a deep space reconnaissance mission to the edge of known space. Expected duration 6 months, and according to Admiral Hutchinson, absolutely no unauthorized personnel. "Sir, Zephyra has proven herself invaluable on previous missions," Marcus argued. "The matter is not open for discussion, Captain. You will depart alone, and your companion will remain here for her own safety." That night, Marcus and Zephyra held each other as much as their size difference would allow. She rested in his cupped hands while he lay on his bunk, both of them dreading the approaching separation. "6 months," Marcus murmured. "It might as well be forever." "Time has no meaning for those truly bonded," Zephyra replied, though he could hear the sadness in her voice. "I will wait," Marcus Reed, "however long it takes." As they lay together in the darkness, Zephyra began to glow more brightly. "There is something I must show you," she said. "Something about the true nature of Lumina bonding." Her light intensified, until Marcus had to squint. When the radiance faded, Zephyra had changed. She was still tiny, still ethereally beautiful, but something was different. Her skin now held a permanent pattern of intricate glowing lines that hadn't been there before. "Bonding marks," she explained, seeing his confusion. "They appear when the emotional connection reaches its deepest level. Among my people, they indicate a mating bond that transcends physical form." Marcus stared at the beautiful patterns adorning her skin. "What does this mean for us?" "It means that no distance, no regulation, no authority can break what we have. Created together, we are bound." Marcus Reed, "In ways your people and mine are only beginning to understand." As Marcus prepared for his departure the next morning, he carried with him the image of Zephyra's bonding marks and the promise they represented. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, even if apart. The 6-month separation had been agony for both Marcus and Zephyra. Despite the vast distance between them, their bond had remained strong, manifesting in dreams and shared emotions that transcended space and time. When Marcus finally returned to Station Omega, he found Zephyra waiting for him, her bonding marks glowing brighter than ever. "The bond sustained us both," she said as he carefully lifted her from Admiral Hutchinson's hands. "But physical reunion brings completion." Marcus didn't know was that his return coincided with a crisis that would test their relationship in ways they had never imagined. The rescued Lumina had shared intelligence about the rogue faction's true purpose, revealing a plot to weaponize alien bonding abilities for military use. "They're planning to force bondings between humans and various alien species," explained Commander Torres during the briefing, "creating super soldiers with enhanced abilities." Marcus felt Zephyra tense on his shoulder. Through their bond, he sensed her horror at the perversion of something sacred to her people. "We need a team, too. Infiltrate their new facility," Admiral Hutchinson continued. "Someone who understands alien bonding from personal experience." The mission would take them back into extreme danger, but this time, Zephyra insisted on coming, despite the obvious risks. "My people's sacred traditions are being corrupted," she told Marcus privately. "I must help stop this abomination." Their new target was a massive space station hidden in the outer rim. It's heavily defended and filled with the screams of unwilling test subjects. As they approached the facility, Marcus felt Zephyra's distress through their bond. "So much pain," she whispered. "We must end this quickly. The infiltration went wrong from the beginning." Their cover was blown within hours, and they found themselves fighting through heavily armed guards while trying to locate the main laboratory. When they finally reached their objective, the sight that greeted them was worse than anything they had imagined. Hundreds of containment cells held various alien species, including dozens of Lumina, all being subjected to forced bonding procedures with unwilling human subjects. The results were twisted mockeries of natural bonding, creating beings driven mad by the artificial connection. "This ends now," Zephyra declared, her skin blazing with furious light. But before she could act, Dr. Korath, the lead researcher, emerged from the shadows with a weapon pointed directly at Marcus. The famous Captain Reed and his pet Lumina, the doctor sneered. "Perfect timing. You'll make excellent test subjects." Marcus moved to draw his weapon, but Korath was faster. The energy beam struck Marcus in the chest, sending him crashing to the floor. As he lay there, gasping and bleeding, he felt Zephyra leap from his shoulder. What happened next would be spoken of in whispers among both human and alien populations for generations to come. Zephyra's bonding marks erupted in blinding radiance. As she tapped into the deepest reserves of Lumina power, every artificial bond in the facility began dissolving, freeing the tortured subjects from their pain. But the effort was killing her. Marcus watched in horror as her luminescent skin began to fade, her life force burning away like a candle in a hurricane. "Zephyra, stop." He struggled to reach her, despite his injuries. "You're destroying yourself." She turned to look at him. One last time, her violet eyes filled with infinite love. "Some sacrifices. Create rather than destroy," Marcus Reed. As her light reached its peak, something unprecedented happened. Instead of simply breaking the artificial bonds, her energy began creating new ones, connecting every being in the facility in a web of natural empathy and understanding. The madness left the tortured subjects, placed by peace and healing. When the light faded, Zephyra collapsed, her skin barely glowing with the faintest pulse of life. Marcus crawled to her, gathering her tiny form in his hands as tears streamed down his face. "Don't leave me," he whispered. "We just found each other." Zephyra's eyes fluttered open, and Marcus was amazed to see her bonding marks still glowing, though dimly. "I am not leaving my beloved. The bond ... has changed us both." Marcus held her. He began to understand what she meant. He could feel her life force, but also something else. His own energy was flowing into her, sustaining her, just as hers had sustained him countless times before. "True bonding," she breathed. "It's not just Lumina and human, but two souls becoming one." In the aftermath of their mission, as they recovered, in the medical bay, Marcus and Zephyra discovered that their bond had evolved beyond anything either species had experienced before. They were still physically different, but their connection transcended all boundaries. 6 months later, at a small ceremony aboard the Stellar Wanderer, they exchanged vows witnessed by beings from dozens of species. Admiral Hutchinson herself performed the ceremony, the first officially recognized interspecies bonding in galactic history, as Marcus and Zephyra began their new life together. Exploring the far reaches of space as partners in every sense, their love story became legend. Proof that some bonds are stronger than regulation, stronger than species barriers, stronger than the vast darkness between the stars. Their harmony space, how expanded to accommodate both their needs, pulsed with crystalline formations that sang lullabies of love across the cosmos, a testament to the power of two hearts that refused to let anything keep them apart. In the end, what began as a gift of gratitude had become something far greater, a love that would light their way through. Whatever adventures the universe had in store,